Well, I hope that everybody has had a good start to the week so far, and I want to get to the our gospel video for Sunday this week, and we pick up in Luke chapter 9. For some time now, we've been looking through the gospel account of Luke as Luke had recorded it, and we're picking up this week in Luke chapter 9, and we start in verse 51. If you want to turn there with me, or you can just listen along, whatever works for you. But we see a time, as we're told here in verse 51, that it came to pass when the time had come for Jesus to be received up. And I love how Luke phrases that Jesus, knowing that the time of his death had come, that he would be crucified, he would be risen from the dead, he would be received up into heaven to ascend back to the Father. And so Jesus, knowing that his time had come, that the time had come for him to be received up, he steadfastly set his face to go to Jerusalem. So they'd been traveling around and preaching and teaching and performing miracles and healing people, but now he knows it's time. He's got to go to Jerusalem for events to then pick up and unfold as God planned them to. And so he sent messengers, verse 52, before him, and as they went, they entered a village of the Samaritans to prepare for him. Jesus, while most of the Jews, as we remember from, previous when Jesus had an encounter, and Jesus had no problem traveling to Samaritan villages and traveling through the country of the Samaritans, whereas most Jews would avoid the Samaritans and vice versa. But here they're coming back as they've done before. They've spent time with the Samaritans and Samaritan villages. They come to the Samaritan village getting things ready for Jesus to come in, and apparently something was said about, hey, we're traveling to Jerusalem, we're making our way, can we stay, can you help us? But, verse 53, notice their response to this request of Jesus and his disciples. The Samaritans did not receive Jesus, did not welcome them, did not want to have anything to do with them, because Jesus had set his face for Jerusalem. Jesus was journeying to Jerusalem, and well, the Samaritans, while they might have, allowed Jesus to be among them, they didn't want to have anything to do with the Jews in Jerusalem, and they didn't want to help in any way. So that's kind of sad that they had that reaction, that attitude, but it's what was happening at that time. But notice verse 54, when Jesus' disciples, James and John, when they saw this, that the Samaritans were rejecting them, not willing to help them, they said to Jesus, Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them, just as Elijah did? I mean, they are fired up, no pun intended. They're mad, they're angry that these people, how dare they do that? How dare they not help us? How dare they reject Jesus this way? And so they say to Jesus, well, do you want us to just call down fire from heaven and just wipe these people out because of how they've acted towards us? And, maybe most of us would be like, well, yeah, that's kind of frustrating. And, we might be like, well, James and John have a point. But if we are of that thinking, as we see now, then we're going to miss the point, because Jesus then turned and rebuked them. Jesus rebuked James and John for this attitude, for this idea that they had. And he said to them, you do not know what manner of spirit you are of. Jesus says, guys, that is not the kind of heart and attitude and spirit that you are to have towards people. Instead, as he says, he reminds them, verse 56, for the Son of Man, Jesus, did not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. Jesus tells them, I did not come and to do all of this to destroy people. I came to reach out to people, to try to save people. And so they went on to another village. There's really an important lesson here for us today, as well as Christians, as followers of Christ, as evangelists, of all of us as Christians living and sharing the gospel. That at times, like James and John, maybe we get tired and frustrated of how many people are rejecting Jesus, rejecting the gospel, rejecting the truth, or people maybe won't give us the time of day to try to study and to learn and to grow with them. And we keep reaching out to people, but people keep choosing to continue to live in sin, and they don't care. And sometimes we can get frustrated, and sometimes maybe be tempted to have an attitude of just forget them. I'm done with them. I wish God would come now and just send all of these people to hell because they're not listening. And well, that's not the attitude we're to have. What we're to do is, as Jesus taught James and John here, and would all the other disciples and all of us, is that we're to try to the best of our ability to share the gospel in an effort for them to believe and obey the gospel and be saved. It's not our job to bring judgment and condemnation and fire and whatever down on people, but to try to reach people with the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, yes, people will reject Jesus, they'll reject the gospel, they'll reject us, and that's their choice, that's on them. But all we can do, what our work is, what our effort, what our desire, what our love should be, is for people's souls, and to pray for them, even those who reject, even those who continue to live in sin. We pray for them. We still care about their souls. We pray that, as Paul told Timothy, maybe one day they'll come to their senses. Maybe one day they'll open their eyes, their hearts will be touched, they'll be freed from the bondage of Satan. And so what we need to do is to continue as Jesus tried. Think of Jesus. Jesus is the one being rejected. Jesus is the one who was constantly rejected and hated. But he still loved and cared for those souls. And we need to do the same today. So let's continue to walk in love, prayerfully, carefully, humbly, diligently, striving to reach people with the gospel, and pray that more hearts will be touched with the gospel. More hearts will come to Jesus so that Jesus can save them. God bless.